right, hello everybody. We are live in today's little hangout, which is called Mastering Blog Headlines. So we're looking at blog headlines with me, Kirsten Hammers from kirstenhammers.com. And I am a consultant and advisor for online educators, for online entrepreneurs, and everybody who wants to sort of work at the intersection of teaching and educating people and sharing your knowledge and still being independent and making a living online, working from home and discovering that freedom. So today we're just going to have a little look at blog headlines. So just doing this for a little bit of fun. And I'd love to know and make sure that you're all here and able to participate. I have the question and answer app enabled on Google Hangouts, which means if you're looking at Hangouts and you see the little Q&A button at the bottom, you can join me for a Q&A. And as I answer your questions, I can highlight that they're answered, and then in the recording you can just skip to that various points. So it's really, really convenient. Okay, and if you want, you can also participate in the chat box. So I'm just going to say hello on the actual Hangout and make sure that you're all participating and it's all working out fine for you. So I've got the chat here. Like I said, you can participate in the Q&A app, which is where you also said that you would join. So everything is working fine. And I'm now going to jump straight into mastering blog headlines to share a little bit of knowledge with you and a little bit of my own experience, really, because I like doing that. So I'm sharing my screen with you guys. Okay, mastering blog headlines. We've sort of got a few little hints in there already, which is all about the different things that you can write in your blog headlines. So sometimes we see a little how-to, we see a little top 10, we see a few lists. First question, really, why blog headlines? Why are blog headlines so important? Because they really are. This is a key part of your blogging experience. If you are writing, you have got to get those headlines right. You've got to make sure that you get the headlines presented to your readers in a way that grabs their attention quickly. So the three core reasons why headlines are so important are attention, and that breaks down into search, Google search, Bing search, Yahoo search, whatever people are using to search. Your headline is what the search engine takes as the core of what your article is about. So your headline has to be not just catchy, but it also has to describe what you're actually writing about, and it has to take into account what those readers, those people have typed into the search engine, what they're actually wanting to know. And the other aspect is time. The internet is busy. World is busy. If somebody is online, they usually don't have a lot of time to spend working out whether they're going to read your article. This is people who already follow you. They're kind of convinced that you've got something to say that they're going to want to read. So it's a little bit easier to convince those guys. But if you're just starting out and you're just starting out with your blogging, or you are wanting to grow your audience, which is for most of us is the case, time is a really important thing. And time means your blog article has to tell everybody instantly that they should read your article. It has to tell them why, it has to tell them whether it's useful or not, so that they can make a decision in 2 seconds whether what you've got here is working for them or isn't. Okay, so attention breaks down into search and time, and all three of them have to work. Now, before I go into kind of core headlines that work for me, and we analyze how they work for Fluent, and I assume then very strongly that what works in Fluent will work for most of us, because those are headlines that follow very universal principles. The order in which you should think about your headlines is, number one, think about your idea and your research. So this is the core of your blog article. You've got to think about your blog article right at the start. If the chat box will be available, sorry, if we got the straight answer out here. Sorry, I'm just answering Sarah's question because that is a core important question, which is just regarding the chat box. The chat box might be available to you if you're in Google Hangouts. If you cannot find it, just keep using the Q&A app because that's a little bit more user-friendly. So I'll keep an eye on both. The chat box works for some users, sometimes it doesn't. And it's classic Google Hangout territory. So I do apologize if you can't use it, but just keep giving feedback through the Q&A app. Okay, back to our headlines. So when you start blogging, really your idea, the article of the idea, what is it that you actually want to say, and any research that you need to do. What are other people saying about this? Are there any important research articles about this? Do you want to look up images that go with what you're saying? And then the whole structure of what's going to work for your article, that comes at the start. Then comes the writing, and only at the end is when you should think about the headline. So the headline, I usually work with a working title, and then later on break it down into a different headline. But I know lots of writers who don't even start off with a headline. Okay, here are some ideas for what works on Fluent. And this is based on Google Analytics, and these are the most popular articles of all of Fluent, which is fluentlanguage.co.uk. It's my language learning blog. It's been around for 2 or 3 years, which means Google really trusts the blog by now, and it does send me a lot of search traffic. So one of my best articles, and this is 3 years old, and it's still one of the best performing articles that I have on this blog, is called The 6 Best Techniques for Learning Vocabulary. And as we break this down, we analyze this. Here are 4 principles that you should consider for your blog headlines. How can you apply this when you are writing your blog articles? Number 1, and this is coming back to the time aspect, predictability. Predictability means your headline has to make a promise about what the blog article is going to deliver. And in this particular headline, the number 6 makes it very predictable how long the article is approximately going to be, how much thinking the user or the reader is going to have to do, and what is coming up. So they know, okay, there's a list of 6 things. This is very predictable. It's not going to be a video, etc. Number 2, make a promise. So this blog article promises you that they're going to be the best techniques, the best ones that I know, the best ones that I have researched, and that is a promise, which raises the interest of your reader, and it sort of makes them think, oh, okay, yeah, if they're the best, I'm going to check this out. Number 3, usefulness. Your article has got to be useful for them. So if it's the best, I don't know, if it's the best something that they really don't care about, the best rooms in London, it's going to be not as interesting to a lot of people. So think about why your article is useful. And what I'm promising here is not just the best something, but the best techniques. And techniques are relevant and interesting to people who are struggling with the vocabulary learning aspect. So techniques are useful, techniques are desirable, and techniques are what people want to see. And number 4 is specificity, which means, who's this article actually for? Don't be vague. If I just say the 6 best techniques, meh, that's not as interesting. If I say the 6 best techniques for learning, Still not quite as specific. I say 6 best techniques for learning vocabulary. So this is quite specific. In fact, what I can do is I can become a lot more specific in this article. I could have gone further. I could have gone and made it an article about the 6 best techniques for learning English vocabulary, the 6 best techniques for learning German vocabulary, the 6 best techniques for learning vocabulary for your travel, etc. So this is extremely important to make sure that your blog article has a specific, predictable promise at the heart of it. That's what your headline should be about. And then all you need to do is have a blog article that delivers on this, which is why it's useful to write the headline after you've written the article, and you can look back at your article and go and think about, okay, how specifically does this work for people? Okay, we've got a hello from Katie Nixon there. Hello, Katie. I'm really glad that you managed to join our webinar. And again, if you want to comment on the webinar, and the easiest way for you is to see the question and answer app, just use that. And that is a great way for me to interact with you in this event, because in a few minutes, I will ask you to participate, bring out your own ideas, bring out your own headlines, and let's brainstorm. Okay, here is another article that works really well on Fluent. And this has a different slant to it. This is less of what's called an evergreen article. This is an article that is specific for a particular time. And it was about 5 German things to shout during the Football World Cup. So number 1, this one's extremely specific. It's about things to shout at your television. It's about football. It's about German language. And it's about the World Cup in particular. So if you're sat at home in your little t-shirt, eating peanuts, watching the Football World Cup, this is the one article that you need to read. It's very specific to your particular situation. One of the reasons the article did extremely well is because Germany won the World Cup, I think. But I wrote it at the start because I am a big fan, and I do actually sit in front of the TV and shout things at the TV. So the second aspect of this is it has urgency, it has timeliness, it has relevance. It talks about a specific period in time, which is when the football is on, when Germany is playing the football. So this is very, very specific in time. And you can make your headlines urgent in other ways as well. So whenever you put a time-specific aspect into your headline, that can be extremely useful. For example, you can say, this week, today, without wasting time, or instantly, or quick. So there are adjectives, and there are different ways of expressing timeliness, and they are very useful to have in your blog headlines because they encourage people to read, and they make people feel that there will be a very quick payoff from investing those 3 minutes into reading your blog post, which attracts interest. So that's good. It's also useful because it's very clear from the headline that this article is basically going to list a few German phrases that you can shout at your TV. So if that's what you want to do, it's really clear that this is what this is going to do. If we're looking back at the previous headline, 6 best techniques for learning vocabulary, again, that is very, very useful. And it's not about how this is useful to you. It is thinking, how does this article help whoever's reading it more than it helps me? That's the idea. So, for example, I could say, here's what I shout at the television this week. That has still got the time relevance. It's still about the same content, but nobody really cares as much. People want to shout stuff, but they want to think, they think, I want to shout things at the German television referee person. And then point number 4 is that this is quite interesting. And it's interesting, again, to a specific group of people. your group of people, your customer, your ideal customer comes into this. So if you're running a business or you're trying to attract attention, you're thinking about your ideal reader. There is this wonderful quote from Stephen King that I'm just going to read out to you. And it's from his book on writing. If you know the tastes of your ideal reader at least half as much as I know the tastes of mine, it will not be difficult for you to imagine what he will like and what not. And equally, I often talk about this when I do my work in terms of brand building, and when I tell you about developing your personal brand and how to make your advertising very effective. And this applies to your blogging too. You've got to think about the person that you want to read this. What are they concerned about? Where are they going to find this article? What are they Googling? What are they reading already? Where are they online? And that is thinking about how you're going to find them. So in this case, German learners, who are a big component of the audience of my blog, German learners are going to be interested in this aspect. Here are just a few inspiration sources that I want to share with you. There are 2 blogs that are really, really excellent and really just looking at the headlines on this blog is a lesson in headline creation. They always follow these awesome formulas. So these I think are really, really useful. Just keep an eye on them. They are Copy Blogger and Pro Blogger. You can just simply find those by Googling them. Copy Blogger is just copyblogger.com, and it's a really great resource for content creation. The Copy Blogger have got, no, HubSpot. I do apologize. There's a marketing website called HubSpot, H-U-B Spot, that you can also Google. And they have got a little content headline making tool. But I personally prefer this one here. And I'm going to try and click on it. And share my screen. Oh, hello. Just going to share my screen with you and show you how this works, because it's so cool. And that is a little content creation agency called Portent. And they've got a content idea generator, they call it. So in the Q&A app, tell me something that you're writing a blog article about, and let's put the subject in and see what it suggests. Oops. Just making sure I'm not missing any of your contents there. Comments. So what are you blogging about right now? Just type your answer in the question and answer app. Educating children. Educating children is an idea that's been submitted. Okay, so you can put, the idea is that you put your keywords in there. Use the singular version. Use the singular version of your keyword. So for example, you can put in child, or you can put in child education, etc. And you just press recreate really when it comes in. Oh, we've got a few more suggestions in here, so that's fabulous. Okay, so let's put in educating children. And let's analyze the headlines that this throws up at us. Okay, number 1. And I just think this is so cute. So you will see the oddest place you will find educating children. And Portent really gives us a really relevant idea of what makes this really interesting. So obviously this doesn't quite make sense yet. But so you can, if you want, regenerate your headline as many times as you want. How educating children could make Betty Draper a better mother. How The sequester affects educating children. Okay, let's stick with this one. First of all, starting a headline with how instantly gives you this strong promise of usefulness. So principle 1, usefulness, is addressed straight away by starting the headline with how. Your subject comes next, and that's really, really important, because it is predictable. So we've got the concept of predictability in there as well. Then this is where it becomes a bit interesting as well. So you're saying, oh, thinking about it, this is a little bit like this. And people want to think, okay, interesting, I'm curious about this. And we've got a school bully here. A nice example, actually, I think, because it is controversial. And it also, again, pulls in this idea of being interesting. So if we're just looking back at what we've got here, I said back, not forward. The article headline that this is thrown up is interesting, it is useful, it is also specific, but it could be so much better. But you've got the idea of the how. Now, Lindsay was suggesting Dutch as a headline, so I'm just going to select that. So the Dutch language, the Dutch whatever. And what you've got there is straight away, again, you've got the interesting aspect. So Tim Gunn in fashion, or insert any other celebrity, how somebody makes something work gives you interesting, again, it gives you useful, it gives you very specific, because whoever you put in there about, whoever person you put in there that is the celebrity perhaps in your niche or is a generic celebrity will make it more specific to your audience. Number one, you're talking about who you are addressing because you're making it relevant to them. So for example, what I could have created with my German football thing could have been how David Beckham shouts German words at the television, or the top 5 German words David Beckham shouts at the television, which keeps me in the football niche without even saying the word football. And it makes me findable again. This is adorable as well. So that's just a little inspiration idea. I don't usually advise you just kind of take whatever this throws at you, but play around with it. If you're stuck on your headline or if you just want alternatives, that's a really important aspect that you can follow. Right, Sarah, just going to select your question there. And you can see in the screen share or the website address for this is do apologize. Portent.com, which is the company that's running it, /tools/title-maker. Or if you just go to portent.com, there's in the navigation, it's very easy to find the title maker there as well. So it's called the blog title maker. And it's really a lot of fun. So I recommend this for inspiration. Moving on to the next inspiration guide really is I would love for you to look at different magazines in not just in your niche, but magazines like women's magazines. Oh my God, do they know how to write a headline? If you've ever looked at the front page or the title page of a women's magazine, my God, it's just full of these wonderful promises, full of these really interesting formulas that they use, and they do kind of, you know, really work their way through this. And I love it. I think it's so interesting. So magazines and newspapers, they've been doing this for thousands of years. So make sure that you follow those. And the other one is blogs that are already doing well in your niche, blogs that you're already reading. Think about and sort of keep an eye out and observe how they are using blog headlines for their own advantage. So those 4 are kind of really sources that I keep looking at, and I always keep an eye out on these. All right, so we've already asked, what are you guys writing about? I'm just going to pick another. We've had Dutch. Now, Katie's saying, language for part 1 of IELTS writing. So let's have a think about this, and I want you guys to think about being specific, useful, interesting, and urgent. So do you have any ideas? Let's brainstorm some ideas. How can we make this useful? And just before you guys, your suggestions start pouring in, I really want to say, Katie, this is actually a really great blog article idea in the sense of being very specific. Because if you just had an article on how to pass IELTS, short of making it about 17,000 words long, I think that would be a very large promise. And obviously, if you bring the promise too far, you can overpromise, and then people don't really trust what you're saying. So we're focusing on a very specific part here. So writing, IELTS writing. So Sarah's suggesting here something that is really awesome. I just want to highlight this. So 5, proven, that's the promise, right? That is the promise. Proven ways to succeed on your IELTS writing exam. So you've got a big promise there. You've got proof as well, the promise of proof, the authority. People can trust this article. So proven ways. To succeed is another promise on your IELTS writing exam. Now, we could add urgency to this as well. How could we add urgency to this? How could we make it time relevant? One idea would be to put in 2015. Or you could put in next week. Or you could put in this year. So you've added, it's not too crazy, it's not too far removed, it's not too over-promising, but you've just added in a little bit of time relevance. So 5 proven ways to succeed on your IELTS writing exam this year. Another great suggestion here. 30 words for describing a line graph in IELTS. Now, one thing perhaps to bear in mind with this headline, I really like the predictability, 30 words. And again, Lindsay's just suggested top words. So again, you've got the kind of promise there, the top, this is awesome, this is going to be great, this is going to really help you. And the other thing that you've got is specificity, I do apologize. So you've got the words. So you could say words, you could say phrases, you could say templates or lines or sentences. So you could say something like the best 30 sentences to write in your IELTS exam, or the best words to write in your IELTS exam. So you've got Lindsay suggested top words for your IELTS Part 1 exam. That's really good. Now, Katie says 30 words for describing a line graph in IELTS. I like line graph because it's very specific. We're really coming down to nitty-gritty here. And it makes the blog article more useful because it's not just, oh, here are 30 words you can use in IELTS. It's 30 words for this specific use. Now, it may be that line graph is not quite what most people would Google, or is not quite what would be the most interesting or relevant. So perhaps instead use a word like diagram, or picture even, or picture again, you're going into vague territory. But I think that's really great. So 30 words, or again, an adjective to use the words would be absolutely fantastic. So we're saying, earlier we had top or we had proven. So 30 top words for describing a diagram, perhaps, or describing data, describing numbers in IELTS, but you've lost the writing. So 30 top ways to write about. And you can make the promise even stronger. And I'm going to highlight something that Eleni is putting in here. She's used the absolutely gorgeous word mastering. Obviously, this hangout is called Mastering Blog Headlines, so I like mastering too. I think it's really cool. So the top 10 strategies to master the IELTS writing exam. Strategies is more of a coaching aspect. So we're going away from words. And again, this is more about what your blog article is about, strategies and techniques. I think those words, give you authority. I think top could be replaced with a more descriptive adjective. So perhaps something like proven, which Sarah was suggesting earlier. I really like that. And she also mentioned immediate. So I like immediate, master the IELTS writing exam, and perhaps in 2015. So as you can see, there's no perfect solution, but there are lots of ways of bringing these little 4 aspects: urgency, specificity, interestingness, if that's a noun, urgency, specificity, interestingness, and usefulness into your blog articles. So instead of saying how to write in IELTS part 1, you want to make a stronger promise, and you want to be more specific. So I actually really love the line graph aspect. Okay, so this is really interesting. And just before I shuffle all the way through to the end, and we'll leave a little bit of time for more questions and answers that you guys will have. There will be a cheat sheet that I'm making available from the headlines the headlines subpage on my website, and that's going to be ready for you in about half an hour. It's just a little bit of extra little tweaking that I've had to do. But you can find me at kirstenhammers.com, which is where I blog about education and entrepreneurship, and where Savvy Brand Academy lives, which is my teaching course for online teachers who really want to drill down and discover that ideal client and discover the idea of the brand and what makes you tick in your work, what makes your customer tick, and how you can translate that into creating a website. So Savvy Brand Academy is closing this week. If you're interested, just head to kirstenhammers.com and check it out on there and just get in touch with me. We'll talk a little bit more about it. Or if you just want to look back through my blogging archive from 2012 to 2015, the website is fluentlanguage.co.uk. And first of all, I just want to say thank you guys very much for attending the webinar. Now, there are a few extra questions that I'm just going to kind of run through. So Sarah asks, is there a site that helps you think of a name for your blog? I'm not aware of any specific website that would help you really work out a name for your blog, but a website that might be really interesting, depending on where you are, is depending on the niche that you're in. To be honest, I think Google will really help, and the core, what your blog is called is not as important as what it is about. Same as naming your company or naming your product. It's not as important as you think it is in terms of how you're going to put things across. But the same rules apply that we were talking about earlier with the headlines. So think about useful, relevant and specific. And that kind of helps. Now, for example, my blog is called Fluent, which is extremely vague, but it sort of gives you an idea of language learning. And the way I came up with that name, took me about 3 days really, for one word, is because I thought about what is it that a language learner really wants. And what a lot of language learners say they want is fluency. And it's a kind of mysterious word. So you will see a lot of kind of fluency aspects in there. And I think that is a very, very helpful way to think about your blog name or your blog relevance. You can bring your name into there because blogging is about personality. It's about developing a personal brand. So why not your name? Why not a little adjective? But make it easy to spell, make it relevant to your customers or your readers. And really just, let it grow with you. I think that is the helpful way to go about this. Now, I've just had another question about Google Hangouts. Okay, just explain how I do a Google Hangout from YouTube. Okay, this is what's called a Hangout on Air. And what I'm going to do, because this is so difficult to explain, I'm just going to show you how I set it up. I think that would help. Okay, so we're in webinars. This is my Google Plus page. So first of all, you need a Google Plus page. And what you're going to do on Google Plus, if you want a headline, if you want a Hangout to be recorded and to be shown on YouTube, is you head down to Hangouts here. If you click on that, you will see sort of public Hangouts that are happening in your circle, Hangouts on Air, stuff that's happening right now. Look, we're famous. And then go to, not video Hangouts, but Hangouts on Air. I don't want to get rid of all my friends, being silly. You go to Start, Hangout on Air, and the little trick is to click Later, and then you can tell it when you want your Hangout on Air to start. Now, as you have planned a Hangout on Air, I'm just going to show you one that I planned earlier. Funnily enough, you're going to find that in events, not else. So here's one I planned earlier. That's the next one we're running, and you are very much invited. So I really would love you to come. And that's all about why and how to set up mastermind groups, which can really help you with blogging, online business, and just getting help from people who are like you, or perhaps a little bit further behind, and collaborating online. So this is all about mastermind groups. I'm going to invite somebody from my mastermind group. And as this is already set up, you see here when it is planned for. And here's a little link section. It shows you the event page and the YouTube page. So if you want somebody to just watch your Hangout on YouTube, you just give them this YouTube page. And that's how you do it. I hope that helped. So the question, did I check if Fluent was used as a blog? Yes, I did a Google search, and I sort of had a little look around and decided that fluent.com and fluent.co.uk were already used, but I felt that using fluentlanguage.co.uk would serve me just fine. And when I first started out my blog, I also wanted something that didn't have my personality in it so much, because I wasn't quite sure where it was going to go. But as I have been blogging for a good while now, a small while compared to some people, I realized that blogging is about personality, and it is about what you think, and you cannot take yourself out of it. So Fluent by itself, that's very nice, but I think it's about me being in there, really. And I do have guest posts, and I do share guest posts, but I still maintain my editorial voice. I think that's very important. Okay, are there any other questions that I have overlooked that you would like to share? Otherwise, I shall share my website with you and just make you aware of where we are. I think we're quite sorted. Okay, right, so just be aware that if you are on my mailing list, I'm just going to email things out to you, and the cheat sheet in particular. Sorry, that's the back end of my website there. And if you want to join Savvy Brand Academy, which is for online teachers or online coaches, and it's a 2-month program where I really take you through a lot of different steps, and I just want to kind of guide you through where we are. So this is my wonderful sales page that I'm very excited about having built. But essentially, it works in 5 stages, and we're starting with documenting your strengths. So before you start sort of advertising and putting yourself out there, I think it's very important to look back on what makes you good at your job. And that is kind of the core message. And we also look at the sweet spot between what you love doing, what other people will pay you to do, and what you're actually good at. So those 3 together is where we kind of start working. And we look at ideal customers and how to find and engage ideal customers. And it's only then that we start building our brand homes, our websites. So that's where you kind of start thinking about how and what to write on your website, and perhaps we're thinking about things like conversions. So there's a whole fine-tuning section where you can start getting into logos and names, like you were asking, Sarah, and you just kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it all. And finally, we master how to never be scared of the competition again. It's a big promise, but hopefully, in terms of my pilot group, I felt that was a very the feedback was great on that stage, and I just love working through that with people. So it's all about reaching out to the people who are working with you. Build those masterminds, build those collaborative events, because they are what makes things interesting. And run little webinars on a Monday afternoon because they're fun. Okay, that is essentially the core of everything I wanted to tell you about. I thank you so much. Oh, thanks, Katie. I thank you so much for coming to join us, for participating in the webinar. And if you've got any other questions, you can find me on KirstinHammes.com. That's KerstinHammes.com. Thank you very much for attending.